Well, Justice has finally caught up with Craig Thomson yesterday. The Melbourne magistrate, Charlie Rosenschwag, found Thomson guilty of more than 50 of 145 theft and dishonesty charges committed whilst he was the HSU National Secretary between 2000 and 2007. He now faces a possible maximum 5-year jail sentence, fines, continuing civil court proceedings seeking at least $400,000, and possible referral again to Federal Parliament's Privileges Committee. You will recall he lied to the Parliament. He told the Parliament his cards were stolen, that he'd been set up. The Privileges Committee has a capacity to do this. I'll say a bit more about this later, but in 1955, two citizens, because Thomson is now only a citizen, two citizens, one the owner of a Bankstown newspaper, Fitzpatrick, and the editor of that paper, Brown, were called before a bar of the Parliament, allegedly for breaching privilege and defaming the then member for Reid, a bloke by the name of Charles Morgan. Morgan was a political opponent of Fitzpatrick's, a wealthy businessman. On a motion then of the Prime Minister after the Privileges Committee met, Brown and Fitzpatrick were sentenced to jail, and they served that time in the Canberra court and in Goulburn jail. All appeals failed. They were two citizens who allegedly had breached privilege, and they went to jail. So what happens to Thomson now in relation to the Parliament is quite separate from all these other issues. The magistrate Rosenschwag said Thomson must have known his union credit cards could only be used to benefit HSU members, and that it was quite an affront to common sense to imagine using them to pay for prostitutes fell within any grey area. He said Thomson knew he didn't have authority to use the cards to pay for prostitutes. And now all of this is the right decision, but you just hope that Magistrate Rosenschwag didn't have to twist himself into too many legal knots to reach it. Because as I told you yesterday, on the 31st of January, 2 days after he had retired to consider his verdict, the magistrate was forced to call the prosecution back to court to point out problems with the fraud charges against Thomson. Apparently at least some of the charges had been framed as fraud offences against the bank, which issued Thomson's HSU union credit cards, when in fact the bank had been paid. The fraud was against the HSU. Magistrate Rosenschwag, to his credit, appears to have somehow resolved that problem, but you can only hope that that doesn't leave his verdict open to appeal. Taxpayers have already spent too much money on all this nonsense. And remember, of course, this is the person who kept Julia Gillard in office. This is the person of whom Julia Gillard said in the Parliament, "I have complete confidence in the member for Dobell. I think he's doing a fine job. I look forward to him continuing to do that job for a very long, long, long time to come." No doubt Miss Gillard will be apologising also today to the people of Australia and the members of the Health Services Union.